fifth-round draft pick from Colorado. Sanders has worked and he's learned. They're trying to rewrite that initial narrative that was out there that basically Shedeur is wasting everyone's time. And the only part that gets me a little angry is that you took a quarterback in the 5th round. You're going to tell everyone that he's just a 5th-round quarterback, and you're going to then try to get all the credit for how he looks once he plays.
They say history is written by the winners. But in Cleveland, it feels like history is being rewritten by the ones who panicked. The Browns are trying to flip their own story on Shedeur Sanders, the same story they built, the same one they used to downplay him, to hide him, to keep him on the bench behind the quarterback who was never meant to lead. And now, after all the chaos, the silence, and the leaks, they want to act like they always believed in him. But the truth is finally coming out, and it's not a good look.
That's the part that bothers me the most. It's a sleight of hand that I knew was coming from a million miles away, and it's going to paint them to be the savior of this quarterback that didn't actually need saving.
It's also the Eric Andre shooting the gas and being like, who could do this? Like, oh, hey, we're going to try and rewrite that narrative that we ourselves propagated.
The coming from inside the house, guys.
And like, here's the thing. They didn't create the pre-draft narrative. They created the post-draft narrative on Shedeur, which was insulting, trying to act like there was a massive difference between Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders when both guys were incredibly experienced college quarterbacks. And Shedeur actually fits Kevin Stefanski better than even Dillon does.
From the start, the Browns controlled every word about Shedeur Sanders. Every narrative, every source, every leak that hit social media came from the inside. They built this idea that Shedeur wasn't ready, that he was a 5th rounder, that he needed time. And fans bought it because it sounded official. It sounded professional. But what it really was a cover-up. A slow, calculated way to protect their own mistakes. When Rapoport dropped that exclusive report saying the Browns are preparing for Shedeur to play this year, fans thought it was great news. But if you looked closer, it wasn't about Shedeur at all. It was about damage control. Because this wasn't just any leak. This was Cleveland rewriting the narrative they themselves created.
And we can only control what we can control, but yeah, I don't want to speak for anyone in particular. And,
It all started with Mime-Gate, the infamous moment that went viral across the NFL world. Reporters asked Shedeur about Dillon Gabriel starting, and instead of answering, he just pretended to talk. A pantomime response that said more than words ever could. It was hilarious, but it also told a deeper story. The Browns had told Shedeur, don't say anything about this. No comment. Just smile. Say you're happy for Dillon.
What are your thoughts of just remaining at that 3rd quarterback? Vocally, anything to say about it?
So Shedeur did exactly that, in his own way. And when people freaked out, the Browns panicked. They scrambled to make it look like a misunderstanding. Rapoport's piece even said Shedeur's approach to the media was a message that got lost in translation. Lost in translation? No, it was perfectly clear. Shedeur was told to stay silent, so he spoke through action, and the Browns didn't like that one bit. The media called it funny. Fans called it iconic. But inside Cleveland's front office, it was chaos. Because for the first time, Shedeur controlled the narrative. And that's something this team never wanted. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Every part of that Rapoport report screamed one thing. This came straight from the Browns. Not from Shedeur, not from Dillon, not from an agent. It was Cleveland's front office trying to take back control. They weren't just trying to calm down fans. They were trying to protect their image.
Saying that the Browns are preparing for Shedeur to play at some point this year. I just quickly want to touch on the Mime-Gate thing, where I still think it's the most overplayed, ridiculous story, and the reaction to it on both sides were crazy to me. Like, there was just nothing measured about that conversation. It was just a lot of people yelling at each other online. The funniest conspiracy theory I had about it, though, was that Shedeur was taking the Browns literally. That the Browns told Shedeur, we don't want you talking about this. Just say no comment or just say I'm happy.
See, when the Browns draft a quarterback, they love to remind everyone that they know best. So when Shedeur fell to the 5th round, They leaned into that story. He's talented but raw. He's learning. He's not ready yet. That's what they wanted out there. But then Shedeur started showing up in camp. Calm, precise, smart, and unbothered. He was outperforming expectations, and suddenly the team had a problem. The same people who painted him as a fifth-round afterthought now had to explain why he looked better than the starter. And that's when they began rewriting history. In Rapoport's piece, they said Shedeur had a long way to go upon arriving from Colorado, but that his development is happening every day. It sounds positive, right? But it's actually manipulation. They're trying to make themselves the heroes of his story. They're setting up a future where, if Shedeur plays well, they can say, see, we developed him. We coached him up. We fixed him. But how can you fix something that was never broken? That's what makes this so frustrating. They took a quarterback with NFL bloodline, leadership skills, mental sharpness, and pro-level accuracy, and they acted like he was just another late-round experiment. They built the narrative to protect themselves from being wrong about Dillon Gabriel. And now that Gabriel looks ordinary, the Browns want to pivot and say, see, we were patient. We knew Shedeur would get there. No, you didn't know. You panicked. Let's be real. Jimmy Haslam already told the media that Shedeur was going to play this year. Everyone heard it. The plan was never to keep him hidden. But somewhere between training camp and week 1, things changed. Maybe it was fear of backlash. Maybe it was Stefanski trying to save his job by sticking with his hand-picked guy. Either way, the Browns slowed the plan down. They created confusion, and now they're paying for it. Because here's the truth. Every leak about Shedeur backfires. Every time they try to spin a story, it just exposes how little control they actually have. And fans aren't buying it anymore. They see the pattern. They see the manipulation. Even the analyst in this clip knew it. It wasn't an agent. It wasn't Dillon. It wasn't Shedeur. It was the Browns. Every word of it was orchestrated from the top. This isn't about football. It's about optics. And that's why the fans are angry, because when you draft a quarterback in the 5th round and then start acting like you discovered him after suppressing him for months, it's insulting. You can't create a false underdog narrative for a player who was already built for the moment. You can't tear him down, then take credit for building him up. But that's exactly what Cleveland's doing. Trying to make themselves the savior of a quarterback they never believed in to begin with. And let's talk about Kevin Stefanski, because every fan watching this knows this isn't just about Shedeur versus Dillon. This is about a coach fighting for survival. Stefanski knows his offense has gone stale. He knows fans have lost patience. And when he feels that seat getting hot, what's his ace up the sleeve? Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback he's been developing. The guy he's kept in the shadows so he can play the hero later. They call it player development. I call it job insurance. The same front office that tried to paint Shedeur as inexperienced now wants to parade him as proof of their genius when he succeeds. But it's not going to work, because fans remember everything. They remember when those same insiders told reporters Shedeur didn't know what he was doing in camp. They remember when Dillon Gabriel was given every rep, every opportunity, every excuse, while Shedeur was benched and criticized. And now, suddenly, we're supposed to believe the light bulb went on? Please, the light bulb was always on. Cleveland just didn't want to see it. And now they're building the next step in the script, the redemption arc. Extra work after practice, new focus, leadership growth, stories being planted by friendly reporters, all to make it look like the organization coached him up. But anyone who watched Colorado knows Shedeur has been about business from day one. He doesn't need a PR narrative to prove his worth. It's all about control. The Browns want to control when he starts, how he starts, and how they take credit when he shines. They want to make sure that when Shedeur finally steps on that field, it's not seen as him proving them wrong, but as them proving themselves right. It's PR warfare disguised as football strategy. But there's one big problem with their plan. It's called time. Because Dillon Gabriel isn't winning games. He's fine. Not terrible, not elite, just fine. And fine doesn't save jobs in Cleveland. Fine gets you fired. And when the Browns hit that point, when the fan base loses patience and the season starts slipping, that's when Shedeur comes in. That's when the Browns will make the switch, pretending it was part of their grand plan all along. You can already hear it. We always knew Shedeur would take over mid-season. This was the timeline. We wanted him to be ready. But fans know better. They'll remember the months of silence, the condescending interviews, the leaked quotes about needing more time. They'll remember how Shedeur was treated as a prop, not a priority. And when he finally steps on that field and lights it up, when his composure, his vision, his accuracy, and his leadership shine through, that same front office will act like they're shocked. They'll praise his growth. They'll talk about patience paying off. But it won't be patience. It'll be exposure. The exposure of a system that underestimated him from day one. Even analysts admit it. Stefanski's stubborn, cocky, convinced he knows better. But when the losses pile up, stubborn turns into desperate. And desperate coaches make desperate moves. When he finally turns to Shedeur, it won't be out of belief. It'll be out of survival. He'll try to sell it as progress, but it's panic. And the fans will see right through it. Because here's the truth. Shedeur isn't a fifth-round quarterback. He's not a project. He's a starter who just happens to be stuck behind the politics of the NFL. He's the future of the Browns, whether they like it or not. And every attempt to downplay him only makes that future brighter. So yes, the Browns are trying to rewrite history. They're trying to take credit for a story they didn't write. But what they don't realize is the real story is already being written by Shedeur, by his patience, by his silence, by the way he's handled everything thrown at him with class and control. When he finally steps on that field, there won't be any leaks, no spin, no press conferences, just football. Just Shedeur Sanders proving that no PR team, no coach, no narrative can stop talents from breaking through. And when that happens, the Browns will once again find themselves where they've always been, trying to catch up to a story they can no longer control. Because you can rewrite the headlines, but you can't rewrite the truth. And the truth is simple. Shedeur Sanders never needed saving. Cleveland just needed someone to blame.